let's get into the pension space, releasing its report. That's the regulator for the first 3 months of the year, showing a spike in the number of retirement savings accounts, that's RSAs. In the report, pension fund assets seen a slight decrease, 19.6 trillion as of March 31st of this year, 0.45% drop, 45 basis point drop from the 19.76 in net asset value reported in February. Now, for us to have a great discussion, we're happy to have the CEO of the PENOP, the Pension Fund Operators Association, Mr. Oguche Agudah. Thank you so much for joining us. Good evening to you. So, as far as the asset allocation is concerned, do you think you can give us a breakdown?
Yeah, so with asset allocations, typically between 60 to 65% has been allocated to fixed income, which is typically government securities. Then another 10 to 12%, so in quarter four, was about 10% allocated to equities. In quarter one, March, about 12% allocated to equities, listed equities on the stock exchange. And then about 11% for corporate debt, and then another 11% for cash or money market. So that's typically how the allocation has been. Then maybe a small percentage for alternatives, real estate, infrastructure, about 3% of that. So that has been the allocation from Q4 to Q1.
Now, as far as the decrease, I mean, slight decrease, I guess if you're looking at month on month, can you speak to that in terms of the little movement there?
Yeah, so I guess, with pensions, people can be a bit iffy on their pensions because, it's moved low. But if you look at it in context, over the last 5 months, it's actually increased by about 2 trillion naira. So between February and March, it decreased about 90 billion. So very little, but it just speaks to the interplay of the activities of the pension fund. So that is reported as net assets that are reported. So if they are investing and the yields are going up, you'll see an increase in the assets. But if they are paying out, so the pension funds, what they do on a daily basis, they are paying out to retirees. They are getting out new contributors. So the figures you see is the net interplay of that. So for the last 5 months, it increased by about 2 trillion. In 1 month, it dropped by 90 billion. So I guess overall, it's not something to be worried about.
Okay, that's good. Now, as far as this is something I think we've talked about with you before. Your total account owners there, the little over 10 million of them.
Yeah.
I guess we want to speak to set against maybe it should be the labor force rather than the full population of the country, though, just because of the number. But yeah, can you talk about the number of RSA holders as far as the accounts are concerned?
Yeah. So in 2023, we added about 300,000+ new RSA holders. Between quarter 4, 2023 and quarter 1, 2024, about 90,000. So it's consistent with what we've been seeing, and it's really about the labor force. So new people joining the labor force, whether federal government workers, as the government is employing, or private sector workers who are employing more than 3 people. So it's consistent. I know when you look at the population, it might be a small number, but in terms of labor force, it's been growing, and we need to get more people in the informal sector. I know you probably will get to that, more people in the informal sector contributing to pensions.
All right. So speaking of which, as far as the private sector compliance reports, what's the takeaways from there?
Yeah, so private sector, a number of years ago, the operators and the regulator came together and we got some recovery agents. So if you're a private sector organization, you're not paying and you're whistleblowed upon, recovery agents will come to you and engage you and, recover that money with interest. So if you haven't paid, and the interest goes back to the individual's RSA accounts. And for those that either have not paid or are still recalcitrant, they'll also go through a court process. So that process has been ongoing. And over the last 10 years, we've recovered about 25 billion from these people that haven't paid. But there's a carrot and stick approach. So one is the stick, like I spoke about, but more the carrot, encouraging people, employers to contribute, because the benefits are huge, because your employees feel safe, they feel they have a future, you can attract people. So employers should realize that it's in their best interest to actually pay their pensions.
Yeah. Speaking of which, I know there have been initiatives on the micro pension front for self-employed folks and also those in the informal sector to try to get more engagement, get more participation in pensions. What's that measure been like so far?
Yes, so it's been tough, to be honest, because it's voluntary. Unlike the formal sector whereby it's compulsory. Yeah. So it's voluntary, so we need to find out, on which levers to pull in terms of getting them in, whether incentives, advertisements, enlightenment, and we're doing a little of that. Is growing, but it's growing slowly. So we hope to be able to ramp up some of that this year with some of the initiatives we are putting in place like incentives, getting people to save, and then if they save, they get some other benefits. So we're working on a number of strategies to grow that, but it's one area that we think, we know there's a large population there, but that needs to grow.
But then that's against the backdrop of the economy, is it not? I mean, jobs. Can you speak to that? I mean, people need to understand that you're not just looking at what's his pen up doing to increase the number of. Yeah, there's an economic context to that. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's why it hasn't grown as much as we thought. Right, when it was launched in 2019, we thought it was going to grow, but shortly after that, COVID came, and most people is what you have, you hold. Right, so instead of contributing to pensions, why should I save for the rainy day when I need to look at it now? But it's really about educating to know that when you're 70, when you're 75, who are you going to rely upon? Your kids. So you need to begin to take care of your financial future in your hands, and that's what we are preaching. That's the gospel we are preaching. It's about your financial future. You want to get to an age whereby you don't need to depend on anyone, either the government or your children. You've put something away, and that's what the micro pensions for the informal sector is trying to do.
I'm showing my age now, but there's the Voltron accounts I used to speak of, the current account, savings, a brokerage account, insurance, and pensions. Now, are you facing the same struggles as the insurance sector when it comes to how people view pensions? Where with insurance, they're like, why do I have to keep paying money for something that I don't know if there'll be an incident? Is it similar? Is it easier for the pension folks than the insurance folks?
Yeah, I guess there's some similarities. People don't like to think about the future. Insurance, maybe if it's life insurance, death, people don't like to think about that.
Yeah.
People don't like to think about when I grow old. It's all about now. So it's really trying to get creative ways to let people know and to let them realize it's for their own benefit. With the way the pension system in Nigeria is structured, your RSC account, it's your account, it's your money, you see it there. So with the previous system, you might have to have worked for 5 years or 10 years before you get a pension. But here, you can jump ship in 2, you can work somewhere for 2 months and jump, you still have your pensions, right? So we're trying to preach that message of it's your money, and besides, if you contribute over 60 months, you can use a portion of that for your house and down payment for a mortgage. So there are many benefits that we're trying to preach, and to make people realize that, time flies. Before you know anything, you're going to be 60 years old. So you need to start planning for that, as most people do.
Very, very true. So I guess, if you were to give an overview, I'm speaking of how time flies. It's already May.
Yeah.
Just looking at, I guess, the industry as a whole.
Yeah.
Is things still tied to the economy? How do you see things going forward if we look at the industry as a macro view?
Yeah. So I think we will continue to get new contributors. So companies will always continue to hire. Might not be as strong as in previous years, but the hiring will continue. And when they do continue, when people hire, they open their pensions accounts. People are increasing salaries, so that will increase contributions. Because of inflation, rates are up, so pension funds will, in the short term, be able to maximize the gains from fixed income, especially short term. Medium term is to look for how to be able to create and co-create opportunities for investing in alternatives infrastructure long term, and just generally is to see how the pension industry can impact the economy as a whole. So that's really the outlook that we see.
Now, if you, as far as I probably, the regulator has a role to play here. Do you see in the future any more flexibility in what can be invested in? I know, there's been the discussion around US dollar securities, but then there's the pressure that might put on the exchanges and so on and so forth. How do you see the more flexibility of what to invest in going forward for PFAs?
Yeah, so I think there has been, over the years, safety first.
Yeah.
And for pension funds globally, that's the mantra, safety first. So that will always be there. But on top of safety, there will be icings in terms of percentages that people can invest. And there are discussions going. There's currently a review of the investment guidelines. The last time it was reviewed was about 5 years ago. So there will be, but it's still within the boundaries of safety, yes, more profitability. But I think safety first is always there. National development, how to develop the economy, definitely, but safety first.
CEO of PenUp, Oguche Agudah, thank you so much for joining us to talk about pensions. Very, very, important topic to discuss as far as the future is concerned. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Rosie.
You're welcome.